Hey guys, well thanks for coming by and checking out the new custom time axis. This is actually version 3. Added some really cool features on here, and so I just wanted to blow through some of those really quickly for you. But I just wanted to kind of sort of from 10,000 feet here kind of give you a broad overview of the indicator and what it does. The main feature, and this is what sort of the flagship purpose of custom time axis was for the purpose of plotting your local time down here in the X or horizontal or time axis, because those of you who have been using MetaTrader or MT4 know that you really can't see your local time in this axis down here. You're stuck with whatever the broker time is. And so I wanted to create, and a lot of people I know out there, it's the same sentiment. You want to look at your charts and look at your local time. So that is the key main sort of flagship again feature of custom time axis. Now what I did was I just placed it on a chart here with all of the goodies just kind of showing for you. But what I'm going to do is back off all of these and just start adding them one at a time, because you may already have discerned or deciphered by looking at this. Oh, lo and behold, what do we have here now? Version 2 didn't have this. Version 3 now has, you guessed it, news feature built right into the timeline. You are looking at real-time news reporting, and so I'm going to go through again. I have a tendency to get ahead of myself, but that's what you're seeing there, not only vertically with the actual time marks, which coincide perfectly with, of course, the sessions, which is what you're also seeing down below here, the 5 major Forex, well, market sessions for that matter, globally, and you see the actual news reports up in the top left. But again, what I'm going to do, I just wanted to show you the main features, but there's also some really nifty things included on custom time axis this time as well, which real briefly have to do with the ability to change all the chart symbols on your workspace at the same time. And one other thing which I'm really pumped about, you will have the ability in the separate charts and actually have the cursor synced up so you could see where the actual cursor is landing in multiple charts just by controlling it in one chart. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to come up, replace this by a blank chart. This is actually not kind of what you get out of the box, because when you do apply it out of the box, so to speak, you're going to see this. But I wanted to add each of the separate features now so that we can sort of separate them out and go through the indicator real quick. So this is the very most basic of all the features of custom time axis. As you're seeing, there are 2 time axes down along the bottom. The one at the farthest, on the lowest, I should say, on the bottom, that is the broker time. Depending upon what broker you're using, and depending what their offset is from GMT, is going to be what you see in this lower horizontal axis here, right? Now, very few of us live actually in the same time zone, plus or minus, whatever the offset is from GMT. So, for the majority of us traders, we're not seeing our local time. When you apply custom time axis, though, of course, that's what you're seeing now here on the axis just above it here. Now, another feature that I did in the current version 2 of custom time axis is, well, I regret, I'm a little ahead of myself. The last version we created was so that it would automatically create, or I should say post your time locally. So wherever you're at in the world, you apply CTA, bam, you see your time locally here. But we did some other things on this version which also automates the process. So let's start to go through this one input at a time. There's your custom time axis. Now, as you're looking at the bottom of this screen, you're noticing, of course, again, you have 2 axes showing. So the first thing is you have the ability to lose the broker time axis. This was in version 1, and those of you who are familiar with that know that. But so let's just take that to true, hide main axis. As you see, we just got rid of the broker timeline, right? So now I'm looking at my local time. If you were able to see my computer clock, it's, in fact, let's move this down to say a 1-minute chart here. and then you bring your cursor down, because that's really what time it is. And that is what's showing on my computer right now. That's 6:48, so we're right on the month. So first input was lose the broker access, right? Okay, so that's true. Time mode, AM, PM. I'm just going to run through this like whoever's watching this video has never seen custom time access before. And you're probably excited about what you're now seeing here. You got it. Another thing about the broker time access, or the native MT4, is we're forced to have to look at the time in military time, which is 24-hour, right? Well, again, how about looking at it in normal AM, PM? You have the option to set it as AM, PM, or 24-hour. I'm not going to put it to 24-hour. I think you've all seen enough of that. But you could look at custom time access in 24-hour if you want, or AM, PM. Okay, so that's that simple drop down right there. Auto session calculate. Now this is where we started really getting cool. We have session markers, as you noticed in the beginning of the video, which shows the market sessions like I referred to. I'm scrolling down on the inputs. You have 5 different sessions, and you can set them all yourself. But it comes defaulted to precisely, again, wherever you're at in the world, you throw CTA on the chart, and it will automatically calculate. I'm going to just jump ahead and turn these on so you can see them, and then I'm going to turn them back off again. Plot sessions, because I need to show you this in order to explain this feature. Plot sessions is true. Now, if you notice, let's increase the time frame and crunch this down. You're seeing the sessions, right? These are different sessions automatically plotted on my chart of the find main sessions. Now, wherever you're at in the world, it will do that. Now, this feature I was going to tell you about basically says, do you want this to happen automatically, or do you want to set those sessions yourself? In the manual and in version 1, there was a process by which you could do this all. It works flawlessly. You can create your own sessions just by going down here, putting in your own times, putting in your own names, etc. And now I realize, why not just make that automatic? Everything else is automatic, but again, you have to take things progressively, step by step, work things out as you're going. It was a natural next step in the evolution of custom time access. So the good news is now it will calculate those market sessions automatically, which is awesome. You don't even have to go in there and figure out GMT and offset and your broker offset and all the rest. Even though I show you how to do that, and it's in the manual. If you like, if the kind of person you like, getting under the hood and really customizing it, you could do that. Otherwise, you just have this set to true. That's the default when you get it out of the box. Now, if you have that set to true, you have the ability still to have your local time come up or your broker time. Again, that's pretty self-explanatory, and you can see those are just determined right here by your entry of true or false. We have that set to true because most people want to see it automatically set to their local time. However, depending which ones you have those set to, it also activates 2 other features, which is if you have it set so that it's set to your broker time, you have the ability to go in there and create any offset you want from your broker to the minute. There are some places in the world, believe it or not, they're not even increments of 1 hour as we're going through the time zones, the 24 time zones around the world. Some of them are in a half-hour segment. So you can actually set that as a default or as an offset from your broker, or if you don't have a defaulted to the broker, you can create an offset from the automated capability of making your local time of the clock. Okay, let's move on. I'm trying to make the indicator as lightweight, streamlined, and easy on your chart real estate as possible. So you may have already noticed, those of you that are very observant may have noticed down here, well, not only do we have a month different color, and I'm going to show the broker axis for the purpose of comparison here right now. We're looking down at our broker axis, which is the white text, right? And you see it's all the same color. You have the month, date, the day of the month, you have the name of the month, and the time, right? Well, I thought, wouldn't it be nifty if we could distinguish those a little bit easier? So that's what you have the ability to do. You can color your month. I'm going to change it to, let's say, blue, just to show you. And as you can tell, it doesn't show up very good, but we've just changed the day of the month to blue. You can change that to whatever you want. I find yellow shows up the best on black. Okay, you of course can change the font and the font size. You can make these things as huge as you want or almost as tiny as you want. 7 is what mimics the native platform. Okay, and of course you can change the color as well. So why do you care? Well, not everybody uses black charts, right? So you can change the color of your time axis, white, whatever. And again, you can make the calendar independent. And I know a lot of this is a no-brainer for a lot of you, but like I say, I'm just being thorough, going through everything. Let's try a red. See, there you go. So let's go back. Let's go back to white with the yellow date. Now, moving ahead, we have one other capability that you could do. And by the way, I was referencing, if you, not everybody uses black charts, right? If you want to use a white or a different color chart, you can set your font color, obviously, so the contrast makes your time really stand out, as well as the size again. But there's one other thing we could do, and this is also pretty cool. You could change the background color of the actual time axis. Now, check this out. Isn't that kind of cool? Now, why would you want to do that? Well, in some instances, some of us are just really meticulous and would love to be able to get in there and because one of the features, by the way, of custom CTA, custom time axis, is that you can apply multiple instances of it on the chart at the same time. And if you did that, you would want to distinguish each of the time axes from each other, right? It just makes it a little bit easier. Maybe you wouldn't care to, but you can apply multiple instances like I just said. And as a quick view of that, for example, I actually have a pre-made one and I can't find it right now. Maybe this one's it. There you go. Is that cool? So you can change the background color of the actual axis and do all kinds of cool and nifty stuff. Even though I put that in there, I found not a whole lot of people really do care about it after all that. But it's in there in case you do want it. Now, notice I changed the month color. Having a hard time chewing and talking and chewing gum at the same time. I changed that, and that's why your month disappeared. So let's go back to getting rid of the main axis and continue on with the inputs here. Okay, give it a few seconds. There you go. Bam. Now, back to the inputs. Here we go. We're about halfway through. This thing does everything that I could imagine I ever wanted, but I guarantee I'll come up with some other stuff, and some of you guys may be thinking of things as well. But here's where we're going to really get into some functional capabilities that I really think are nifty little add-ons. Okay, so we just covered the coloring and the font, customization, the background color. Some people wanted to create a bar timer, close of bar, how many seconds to the end of the close. So I added that in. This is just a part of CTA. So I just set that to true, and you can of course, change the size of it. Let's go ahead and make that a 12, and the color, let's try green. And so we're going to click OK. And so what you're going to see is a bar timer. There it is. We got 32 seconds, 31, 30 left to the close of this 15-minute bar. Of course, this is all going to change, right, depending upon what bar you're on. Now, if you're on an even time, which is where we are, we're coming up at 6:59 p.m. What the interesting thing is, you can put any time frame because it's an even hour, and it's going to show the same seconds counting down, right? Isn't that cool? Just happen to hit that right now. 5, 4, 3. Now let's go to a 1-minute bar and watch what happens. 2, 1. Well, it already started flowing. There you go. 57, 56. So that's a feature some people really use, especially now with binary options. It comes in handy. Okay, back to the indicator here. Let's take another look at the next step here. So we have the bar count. bar time countdown timer. I'm stumbling on my words because you can get these things around on the internet. You can find different bar countdown candle timer. They're free. You go out there and find them. I just wanted to include it in CTA. So there's your timer. And by the way, you can set that any position you want on your, well, not on this one. I'm getting ahead of myself. You can go to the middle of the chart, show it shows up by the up above, so to speak, where there it is, or you may prefer it down below. But the cool thing about this is you're not even limited to that. I've had some requests for people to say, geez, I'd like to move it around. Well, okay, ask and you shall receive. Let's go ahead and move that back to where it was at the bottom, and I'll just give you a real quick run through of that. Sorry if I'm boring you here. I'm just trying to get through everything. You can move that around. Isn't that slick? Okay. Thing about that is if you do move it when you change, if you change your chart compression or change the symbol, that'll go back to whatever the default was set to. Why is that? The reason is because, well, it's too complicated to explain right now, but essentially if you've gotten into ever writing text on your screen, depending upon which you have two choices to do that in MetaTrader. One of them creates like a floating text, and the other one is it locks in the text. Well, when it comes to this bar timer, we can't have it both ways. So you either have it float or you don't. But the bottom line is here, we can't make it so that it stays precisely where you want it on the chart and still have the ability to move it, and at the same time have it still maintain that position if you change your font. And that's a limitation of the MetaTrader architecture. Okay, let's move on. This is a cool one here. I really love this one. This one is one that I've wanted to do. Looked all over for it, can't find it. Maybe somebody out there has found it, but I haven't. What is it I'm talking about? The ability to see your profit loss of your position right up on the screen instead of having to open up the terminal. Now, I just said true. As you can see, it's showing in USD. I'm in the US. This will automatically show whatever country you're in. And this will, what shows here is what is in your terminal for the symbol of the chart that you're on. So right now, we're on a dollar Swissy pair. Well, you can see I have no positions open. So it's just showing 0 for that. The positions that are open there are 2 euro GBP positions. But what happens if we change this? Oh, glad you asked. Let's go ahead and change our chart to euro GBP. Move that up, and guess what shows? Your composite, your total net of both positions shows up on your chart. Pretty slick, eh? Now, here's what's something that's really cool about this. I'm going to go back to something else so it doesn't gum up our chart. In CTA, you might be thinking, well, what if I want to see it in pips? Again, God, I'm glad you asked that. You have 6 different options of what you're able to show next to your bar, or you can even change the position on this with more options of the countdown timer. So, God, I wish I could go faster, but as you could tell, it just takes time to run through all this. So you have the option. If you place a trade on this chart, let's say, of the Euro JPY, you may want to see your net. And let's just do it. Let's just do it here. Let's just take a trade. I'm in my demo account here. You have the ability to see this in pips, in dollars, in net position. So let's go ahead and place a trade. Let's go ahead and take a fiver. Well, let's keep things simple for you in case we ever want to do some math here. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take a position. Now, one of the settings is, if you look in the terminal, and I got rid of those other 2 positions in the interim, obviously here, you can set CTA, like I said, 6 different ways to show 6 different things. The way I set it just now is for the last order. What if you just want to be trading one chart? Maybe you have other positions over, maybe you don't, and you just want to see that position that you just placed, right? And so it'll show you that if you select profit loss, the symbol of the last order. So that's what you're seeing right there. You're going to see the same thing there as shows in the terminal. So there it's minus 0.03, we're like bouncing between profit and loss. So that's very cool. But you might want to see your net position. Maybe you're putting on multiple trades or scaling or something to that effect. So again, you can set that for all the trades of that particular symbol. So you could be watching right on your chart without having to keep on going back to your terminal to see that, just by sitting symbol total. But you also have the ability to specifically tell it to only track a specific order. And those of you who are familiar with MetaTrader know that right over in the terminal you can see the order number of every trade you put on, and there it is right there. And you can place that order in there so that way it's not getting mixed up with anything. You can go over there in another chart and create a different chart, and these will not be mixed up. When you go back to this one, it'll always show it. And you may have noticed there was also the same thing as showing the dollars for each of those options. You can do the same thing with pips. So I won't go through all of that. That's pretty straightforward. The symbol total for pips, this symbol last order, or by the order number. Very cool. It's all there. There's actually six options. Okay, so same thing, actually a little bit more latitude on the price profit loss. You can also place that in any of the corners, upper left, upper right, lower left, lower right, or right at the price bar. And just like the bar countdown timer, yep, you can move that around as well by double clicking it, selecting it, and you can move that puppy anywhere you want. And keep in mind, like I said, you can make that any size, make big bold in your face so you are always aware of what your position is. Okay, so that is something that really comes in handy. You'll be amazed. You ever want to just say, well, I just want to look at my chart and see what that position is right there. It creates an accountability where you really can't be in denial if you're in a loss, or sometimes you can actually be more proactive towards taking a profit by virtue of looking at it right there. You know, people say, well, geez, you know, I only have so much money to spend on tools and techniques, and I'd rather put my money into an EA or indicators that'll help me make money. Well, believe it or not, this thing actually helps people make money because it puts some stuff right front and center in front of our face where we don't have to be playing around and trying to come up with all this information in a laborious fashion that a lot of times translates into losses, unfortunately. So I just want to get everything right up front there, so the last thing we have to be thinking about is some of these incidental pieces of information, so you can really focus on the trading. All right, so that's what you could do with the profit loss, which really comes in handy. You can turn that on or off. You place it wherever you want, and you can change the color of your up color, your positive color, your negative. I have the pretty straightforward green and red. Okay, now let's get into some of these sessions here. Again, on the last version, and I may have made a mistake earlier, I was kind of ambiguous calling version 1, 2, and 3. Version 1 was actually local time axis. Version 2 is actually the first version we call custom time axis. Version 3 is also custom time axis, but it's the second version of CTA. So if you hear me saying version 2 and version 3, they're synonymous. I'm just in a hurry trying to belt this out here for you. So here we are, version 2, which was version 1 of custom time axis. The sessions you could go in there and set. Yes, of course we're going to plot these as they are plotted as true right now. You can turn that off or on. Some people that you don't want to see the sessions. Okay, but we've made some really cool improvements here with the sessions. I already touched upon this earlier in an earlier input where I said that you could set those sessions to auto plot. In other words, the same way the time shows your local time down here, if you want it to plot that automatically, you could set the sessions so they also automatically calculate where you are in the world and place the sessions, the various market sessions around the world, main sessions, so it shows up on your chart in your local time synonymous with wherever it's going on. So of course, most of the market sessions open around the world right around 8:30 their local time, 9:30, and so your local time is going to be different. We all know that. This is nothing mystical about it, and this is not rocket science. But wouldn't it be cool to just have it show up on your chart so that when you see a new session coming, which if you look down here at the bottom, I think I have this set for this dark green is the London session open down here. That'll do it in your local time. In other words, when the London session is open, wherever you're at in the world, it'll show up on your chart in the same fashion, and that can be plotted automatically. And so there is now an input to do that, but I'm kind of getting around. I'm going all over the place here on you. So you set the plot sessions as true, and it'll plot those, and it'll do it automatically. Say for the purpose of saving on your computer resources, you can set the max days back to plot, which is very cool. We can limit that. Do as many as few as you want. You can just go 1 day. These vertical lines that you're seeing there, I just changed it to 4, by the way. These vertical lines, you could get rid of those if you want. Some people, it's like too much information. I don't need to see that. Well, others want to make sure they never see a market open or a market close. And so by plotting those as true, they're in our face. You can't miss when a market session opens. I'm sure at some point somebody's going to say, well, why don't you have the market close? We need to see that line. And if I get enough of those requests, I'll put it in. But right now it seems like the open is the key. You can look down and see where the market session's closing. Easy enough. You can also label the sessions. There you go. And you can either set the sessions manually, like I talked about before. You can create your own offset in there, whether they're automated or whether they're done manually. All very cool. You can do all that. But here is another cool thing. You don't have to look at all 5 sessions. Let's say you only trade, your local session, or maybe you're on the west coast of the United States. You only want to trade the London session, for example. You can set all the other sessions off if you want to just show the one that you want to trade. Isn't that slick? So let's just turn 3 of those off. Bam. And I'm not even going to try to correlate which sessions are which. You get the idea. But I'm going to go ahead and only show 2 sessions. Close. Bada bing, there you go. 2 set. That must be the European and the London and the European, or the European and the London in that order. So there you go. That's very cool. I think it is. I'm a minimalist. I like to only show what the absolute bare bones necessity is. I think a lot of traders are the same way. We have enough stuff competing for chart space without having to add to it if we don't need it. Okay. This show GMT, these inputs are going to be removed. That's a little bit obsolete. We needed that in an earlier version, but we don't need it on this one. So don't be surprised when you get the indicator doesn't have those. It's kind of redundant because you have to input that anyway. So no sense having it in there. Okay, show news. This is where we're getting to the exciting stuff. A lot of you are probably saying, why didn't you just do this? This is why I want the indicator. I have it set to false right now, obviously. So let's say we want to go true. Again, in the interest of minimalization, you have a lot of options here. So I'm going to go ahead and set it to true, and everything's going to show here all at once. And I'm also going to set this vertical line so that it's, again, in our face right up on the chart. There we go. Bada bing. Now, this is a 5-minute chart, and there's a lot of news events I could see that happened here in the last day. Well, actually a couple days ago. Isn't that cool? When you can look at the plots, the market plots, you know exactly where those sessions happen. Now, you can go to Forex Factory, of course, and see all the news events, which is very cool. But you always have to correlate the times, and you're always sitting there translating. This way, you take one look at the chart, and bam, you see the whole thing. Now, one thing I'm going to do here, because I relate to the way I relate to colors and the way I have CTA set up on my chart, I'm going to set it up locally here for what makes sense to me, because I'm going to be going through these things real quickly here on you. Bear with me. I might cut this out, but then again, I might not. What I want to do is just set my colors to what I identify with. I typically set the European session a little lighter green, then I go dark green in the interest of the forests in Germany. Then I go to blue for the US session, red, white, and blue, and then I go down here, and in the Australian, I put in the alt back, yeah, I go magenta. Sorry about that, Australians. I just kind of had to take a little break up the monotony. And last but not least, I have yellow for Asian. Now, and then let's go ahead and turn those sessions back on, which I've turned off, because I want to talk about news events right now in the context of the various sessions. Yes, you can be sure. That's the other thing. They automatically plot on your screen. Isn't this cool? So what you're seeing right now is our news events, to be sure, and they are plotting as they correlate in the frame of reference of the actual market sessions. So at one glance, you can see what news events took place or are going to take place in what session. So we know right here, we're going to have, this is coming up. This is the 3rd of November, 2016. We are already into, obviously, the Australian and the Asian session here. Now I'm going to scooch this chart a little forward. Over here is where we are seeing the beginning, again, of the European session and the London session. So if you've never realized or done a study on this, you'll see very easily here and concisely that, guess what? Look at that. The Australian session ends at the beginning of the European session, and the Asian session ends at the beginning of the London session. You have this little period here where they just kind of stagger and overlay over each other. Isn't that cool? But the cool thing is you could sit there and see when the news events took place in context very easily. If you ever want to go back and backtest or look at how, and by the way, you can only go back 1 week because that's what's limited in terms of the news feed that we use. You can go forward 1 week as well. Now, let's get into let's really drill into this news here. You could set the prioritization of what shows up on your screen. I'm glad you asked. Can I set the priority or the impact color? Yes, you can. So the way I have it set is the highest impact is red, lowest is blue, medium is blue, and lowest is yellow. That shows up on your chart exactly the way the impact is. Now what's cool is a lot of times you have events taking place at the same time almost, right? And so you're going to see those on top of each other. Well, CTA will automatically order the prioritization of the news event from red or whatever color you have, from highest to lowest. Now let's go back here. This was yesterday. You saw a number of news events. And by the way, you're noticing I'm rolling over the cursor over the event. You can see it print out horizontally right there, or you can see it vertically if you like to cock your head to the left. But if you start getting kinks in your neck, all you have to do is roll your cursor over it. And each event will show up there very nicely for you. Now, if in the event, so there's 4 happening all at the same time, and you can see them show up there. Now, you say, well, I'm just looking up there in the tabular. What's the problem? Why do I need to do that? You're right. You don't need to do it. If you're looking at your chart and you want to see very quickly what the events are that are coming, these are future events. You look up here in the top left corner. Now, we're not seeing those because we're on a very small time frame, but let's go ahead and open this up to like a 30 minutes. So now we can see into the future. We have a whole bunch of yellow ones here. These are low impact events, but if you want to see what they are, again, the one at the top is the event that is coming, yet to come. It's in the future. You're seeing the first one at the top. It doesn't show past events up here. It would just clumsy, clog up the chart way too much, right? So you could look up ahead here and you could see, well, we got a bunch of low priority, low impact events coming. And when are they coming? Oh, look at that. They're happening, I don't know, maybe a couple hours into the European session, which is also overlapped into the London session. Now, had this been a lot of red stuff, you'd say, well, you got 2 sessions overlapping there. You probably got a lot of volume. I'd really be careful of any trading. See, I love being able to see things. One picture paints 1,000 words, right? So there you go. But look at this. Tomorrow morning, as we get into the overlap period where the highest volume in the market is between the European, the London, and the U.S. session, bam, you got a lot of red things happening right there tomorrow morning. What are they? You got the unemployment, you got the average hourly earnings, another unemployment rate. There's a lot of stuff going on. If you're a news trader, one look at the chart, bam, you can see everything that's going on, and you're not going to miss this, I guarantee. If you're trading, you're not going to be taken blindsided by news events. Now, you say, that's way too much information up on my chart. Can I get rid of it? Yes, you can. Absolutely. Let's go down here now and start to lose some of this stuff. You could do all kinds of stuff. I don't know how much I'm going to drag you through here, but suffice it to say, you can completely change the font size, color. You can also reduce the number of events that you show. Right now I'm showing all of them. You can choose to show just your highest priority events if you want, in which case you'll see just the red ones here. There you go. You can change the size, like I said, of the font. But here's some other cool stuff. What if you don't want to see that big fat vertical line? Cool. Glad you asked that one again. Man, you ask great questions. You can reduce that vertical line that shows there. Well, you can get rid of it, or you can reduce it. But right now it's at full height. What if I just want to see a little old line that just shows up on the chart without getting carried away? Well, there you go. Or I should say, there you go. You can see the line has now been reduced. Or you can get rid of the line altogether, right? Or you could choose to not have any text show up. And let's go ahead now and get all of those events showing up, because I've reduced it to just the high. And of course you can go high and medium, or you can do all. But what I'm going to do now is, let's say I don't want to see the text at all. Hey, I see it up on the left. What do I need to see it down below for? Well, there you go. Now you just see so you know that in the future events are the yellow. You just correlate the yellow up here, and you got your Spanish services PMI, a low impact report coming up, right? Wow, I'm up a whopping 35 cents on that position. Look at that, 32 cents. Big loss. Okay, so we're getting closer to the wrapping this up, but there's a couple very cool things that are coming I'm going to leave you with here. So those are the sessions. You have complete ability over what you show or don't show on your news events. Very cool, very slick. I totally dig it. Like I say, I like seeing things visually. Some of you don't, you like going to the websites and seeing that, which you will have to still do if you want to see what the actual results were, how much they beat it or came up short or whatever. You still have to do that. By the way, these are your exactly what you're seeing on Forex Factory is what you're seeing right here. All right, so let's move on. And you can get rid of the text, which I already showed you. You can put it back. Your news fonts, you can change that, and that adjusts that text size. By the way, you can change it in the tabular text font size, independent of what you see down below here as well. And you can calculate, you could stipulate the number of days you show in the past. You could go, like I said, back to 7 days, as well as in the future. And if you're a minimalist, again, you want to save on resource power, you could just decrease it to the bare minimum. Okay, show news tabular, you can turn that off. Maybe you want to see it down below, you don't want to see it up on the left, and there you go, you've turned that off. Maybe all you want to do is see that there is a major event coming. You don't even care what it is, so you could just reduce it to just show the lines if you want. So every variation on the theme for news imaginable, you now have no excuse for missing a news event. I don't know about you, but I would just don't like to have to put energy into always having to check news. A lot of people love it. They print it out, they put it up on their corkboard, whatever. I don't like to go through that extra step. Okay, the corner, you can change it. By the way, you can, same old thing, right, left, top right, bottom left, bottom right. And right now, I think my computer is trying to do some kind of virus scan or something like that, because it's slowing down all of a sudden. There we go. So it's a drop down events to show. You can, by the way, you can show a bunch of them into the future if you really want. I'm not going to go through it. I just chose 10, so we only saw 10 events on the top left. Font size, horizontal position, vertical position, all of that, just so you can put that thing whatever corner you want, literally place it on the chart wherever you want. Now, let's get into some serious goodies right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop for a second, regroup, and I'm going to come back and start to show you about the sync cursor, which is very, very cool, if I don't say so myself. Okay, so we're down to the final section right here. Last two capabilities that I'm really thrilled about. One of them is the ability to see your cursor, like I talked about real briefly in the beginning of the video, located at the same place on multiple charts. So we call that sync, cursor sync, I think. Yeah, cursor sync cursor, or cursor sync. And so this is a capability that's in some real expensive programs out there, ones that you have to pay $100, like TradeStation. I think it's like $150 a month or something like that, unless you have a $5,000 account. And I think you even have to place a certain number of trades to get the platform for free. So it has this capability. Of course, it has a lot of other stuff as well. I actually love TradeStation, but one thing I miss about it is the ability to look at multiple time frames as I'm back testing and calculating and looking at the interaction of how certain, whether they're time frames or certain currencies, how they react between other markets, etc. So now we can do that in MetaTrader, and it's a part of CTA. So what you would do is come down here as you would say true to sync cursor. Now I've already got 3 charts set up to do that, so I'm not going to do it on this chart. The cool thing about it is, well, you don't even have to do it on this chart, but let me go ahead and get rid of this chart and show you the 3 charts I already have set up so we don't have to get confused. So there you go. Now if you were to open up any one of these, I'll just go ahead and show you. That's how I have this set. I have sync cursor to true. So by virtue of doing that, look at this. Where I place the cursor on my chart, it is automatically showing on the other charts. They're synced up. Now you might say, why would I want to do that? Well, for example, let's take a little look here. Now I'm really huge into multiple time frames. I love it, and this used to be something years ago when I started. There wasn't a lot of people into it. Now it's become almost you know, another clicky thing where everybody's into multiple time frames. I mean, believe it or not, 20 years ago, there was not a lot of people into it, and it just made total sense to me. And again, I was using TradeStation, so it was so easy to see this that I was able to easily analyze the markets in this fashion. But for example, let me show you this. Now I'm using an indicator here which is pretty common out there. It's a double smooth stochastic. Please don't ask me for this because you can find it on the internet. A lot of forums have it, and this used to be a proprietary indicator, and I want to give him credit. Walt Gressert, which was one of the very first workshops I ever went to in Chicago. He deserves all the kudos, and I wish he could have made $1 million just off this indicator, but you know, it's just been let loose over there, and there's probably hundreds of thousands of people using it, but I have actually purchased it numerous times and done things with it. But nonetheless, having said that, that's the smooth indicator that you're seeing down there at the bottom. Now, on this top chart, you'll notice that it actually has one of the issues one of the little bugs I was telling you about earlier. So I guess you're seeing it happen here, right here first in real time. It'll probably fix itself. But basically, what I have is a 5-minute, a 1 hour, and what is this one down here, a 4 hour. Notice how the cursor is showing the same exact time as it correlates regardless of the time frame. Now, so let's say you want to do a little bit of a technical analysis here. Notice on the 4-hour chart, well, I'm not going to do what everybody does out there and cherry pick charts, but this will be very it's illustrative, I guess you would say. You could see that, for example, here's a great example. I am down here on the 4-hour chart watching the smooth stochastic, where you're just seeing the stochastic turning down, which you would expect a big down move, wouldn't you? But on the 5-minute on the 1-hour chart, you see, look at where the cursor is lining up here. So you want to wait, let's say, till that gets overbought, while the 4-hour is also in a downtrend. So watch what's happening. I'm scrolling over. The 4 hours it's in the oversold condition down at the bottom. And let's say I want to time my entry with my 15-minute chart. You could see up here on this 15-minute, there's a little bit of life left in that move on the downward. So on all 3 time frames, I'm catching some of the downward direction on the smooth stochastic. And if you look at that on the top chart, you might say, well, it doesn't look too impressive. Well, let's see how many pips actually would have been taken if you would have waited on all 3 charts for those 3 to line up. So we have 127.33, and let's say you would have stayed in the trade because the 1 hour was still down, even though it's way oversold. So you had faith that it was going to continue downward because you're looking at your 4 hour and it's still strong down. And let's say you wait until you get oversold and it turns up to exit your trade. And you're just back testing to see if this methodology is going to work. So what do we have our price at down here at the bottom of the move before we exit? Did I do that right? I'm talking so much here. Yeah, I did. So there's the move up, and where was our price? That was at 126.98, and we would have entered it over here, which was roughly 127.37. So there's a 39 point move there. And if you wanted to see this more in drastic relief, you would see that if you were trading based upon that methodology by which you uncovered using this tool, you could see that that was actually a pretty sizable move right there. Let's go ahead and open the chart so it looks more impressive. And there's that move, would have gotten in right there. And would have gotten out there. And you were able to uncover that gold by virtue of using this cursor. Now, there's a lot of things you could do for your technical analysis. You could do intra-market analysis, I think it's intra-market analysis, utilizing this. And so this is a very cool tool that I wanted to include here. Again, you can find one of these things out there on the internet, but one thing it doesn't do, you'll notice that this thing will change all the charts automatically so that the cursor, you're not always having to go to every chart and move it manually to show the cursor, and that's really irritating when you're trying to do this. So I made sure that on this indicator it adjusts automatically. See, the chart on the top is scrolling even though I'm moving the one in the middle, because you don't care, you want to see where the cursor is at, right? I'm moving the middle cursor. Isn't that slick? So you can do a lot of very cool stuff. Now I have the chart set up very skinny here, but of course it does the same thing whether you want to put your charts, you know, large like this. And you could put a 10, 15 charts. I wouldn't have recommended it, but certainly you could get away with 4, 5, 6, 7 charts if you really wanted to do this analysis. Just right here, it's worth its weight in gold just to have this cursor, I have found, just for analysis. And you'd be surprised again if you're doing even trading in real time if you have your chart set up with this. It has a way of putting the truth in front of you as you're moving it across there on your 3 charts and waiting for your entry, for example. So that really comes in handy, and that is worth the price of admission right there. Now that is the second to last capability before I get into this very last one, which I think will put the icing on the cake here, hopefully. Here's what is very cool. Let's say you're doing this intermarket analysis or multi-time frame analysis. Let's stick with the multi-time frame analysis. And let's say you say, well, that's how, you know, the pound yen looks, but I wonder if that same, you know, particular phenomena works good in other markets. Well, glad you asked. So what would you normally have to do? You'd have to bring up the markets, right, and change each one of the charts individually. 1, 2, 3. And it's not a big deal with 3 charts, but some of us have 4, 5, 6 charts on. Wouldn't it be nice to just be able to chart or change one symbol on one chart and have them all changed? Yes. And that's another function, like I say, of some of the more expensive programs. Well, guess what? Now for this free program, MetaTrader, you could do that with CTA attached. Watch what happens. So I'm now looking at the GBP JPY. Well, let's say I want to continue my analysis on the Aussie USD. I just drag that over on the one chart and bada bing, look at that. Every chart has been changed now to the Aussie dollar. Is that not slick? And you can just do this till the cows come home, as they say, and change. It really comes in handy if you do a lot of, you don't want to keep on having, you know, changing your profiles and moving from chart space to chart space and having to wait for all your charts to open. All you have to do is set this. And let's try one last one, the USD CAD. We'll put that on the middle chart. Watch what happens. Bam, they all changed. So that's a function of CTA enabling that capability to happen. Now what if you have a number of charts up there and you don't want them all to change? You could set this with magic numbers so that you, for example, you could set up let's say you could set up 2 banks of charts, 3 and 3. You just set the magic number. In this case, I think I have it just defaulted to 0. It's right there at the bottom. I'm sorry. You could change that as long as the charts that you want to all sync together have the same number. It does it. And that has nothing to do with the sync cursor. That's simply an on-off proposition, and it turns off all the chart cursors. And the reason it's showing up in those others is because I have every single chart that I wanted it to show up on turned to true. So if you change that to false on all of them, you're back to normal charts, because that could sometimes even get to be a little irritating having, you know, your cursor showing up. So we're at the final stage here, and I think we have got just about everything covered without totally boring you. But I think with what you're seeing here, hopefully you're very excited, because this is now something I found even in my own trading that I'm going to time and time again, and instead of wishing for it now, I'm actually able to do it. Yeah, I just wanted to show you one more configuration here using the sync cursor and taking advantage of the new mod we just put in, which is much more seamless and user friendly, so, and transparent to your normal workflow, which is simply the ability now to not have to go into the indicator to turn on and off sync cursor. It's always there. So it's very cool when you're going through and doing your chart work or your analysis or back testing. All you have to do is hit the shift key, and it is so cool because, as you can see right now, I'm moving around my cursor on the different charts without having the annoyance of having the synced cursor moving around all the time and changing my charts. Well, what's really cool is if I see something that I want to dial in, drill down a little bit more on some of the shorter term time frames. Let's say I'm looking at my 4-hour chart here, and I'm saying, man, this is really nice how it's coming up and just tracking on that trailing stop, right? And I say, what if I wanted to take an entry? What would that look like on my shorter term charts? Well, let's say anywhere in this area over here. So all you have to do is hit your shift key. Your cursor pops up, easily tracks now on all 4 charts, as you can see. And as you're probably thinking to yourself, you're saying, yeah, it really looks really clean on the 4-hour up here. But aside from the 1 hour, as you can see, I put a little arrow here because, of course, that would be the ideal entry, which wouldn't have been far off from being able to do, because you're seeing we came down and we're hitting on our bouncing on our 4-hour on that trailing stop, and so you're looking for a good entry, right? Well, we're tracking, let's say, our oscillator on the 1 hour, so it's coming down into the oversold. I keep the 533 stochastic up there, for example, for a little more sensitivity. So that was showing it was turning up already right there. So I'm in real time realizing, even though I'm way oversold on this smoother indicator, I'm seeing that I'm probably going to get that trigger there, right? Oh, well, no problem. I can just look down on my shorter term charts to see an even more believable entry, because we have the smooth oscillator turning up. It's above my trailing stop over here, right? You see where I'm going? So this is so easy to do this analysis. And if you're really wanting to micromanage this trade entry, you're seeing by virtue of backtesting how this would look in real time without having to flip back and forth between charts, right? Is that not cool? And then if you want to even take it down one level further, come down over here onto our 5-minute, to really see what that was looking like. And you can say, wow, geez, that chart's all over the place. That would be hard to trade. Well, welcome to the real world, right? This is what we see in real time. But by virtue of going back and doing this, it helps to sort of give a moving average to our psychology. How's that for a new sound bite? We don't want to be so erratic. We want to really see the big picture. And of course, framework, reference, context is everything in trading. And so that's what this ability, using this multi-time frame or cursor sync, however you want to use this tool, gives you the temperance to be able to accommodate what in the real world might tend to be a little erratic. But you're going back through here and looking at it now without having to put a bunch of lines on the charts and switching your time frames back and forth to see what they would look like on the smaller time frames. Now, I've kept in the news events, which is also very cool. So again, you just remove your finger from the shift key and you can come through here and see what your events are. Again, there's a longer term, so you see they're all bunched up, but you could see that they are already put in priority. I don't even know what CNY stands for. Maybe some of you guys do, but let's go back here to this current bar, for example. I know I'm overlapping. I'm talking about the cursor sync, but we might as well take this opportunity to kind of tie it all together. So here's our current bar in real time. Our next event coming up is this blue one right here. Actually, that already hit. If we look over here onto the 1 hour time frame, yep, sure enough, there it is. Yeah, that was a New Zealand dollar news event, and we're already 2 hours past that. We come down here into the 15-minute. Right? It's really cool because now we can just open it up further to see all those events that were taking place really at that same time. So there's our New Zealand news event, and then we have two lesser. That's a medium impact, by the way. Then we have two lesser, and then we take it all the way down to the 5-minute, and there they are again. If you want to see what they are, you just you just run your cursor over it, and to see exactly what's going on. Westpac consumer sentiment, that's a low, and that's coming up, looks like in about 15-20 minutes here, and that's an Aussie dollar event. Again, all you have to do is look up on your tabular Westpac consumer sentiment. So that is some of really the rarefied insight into how we can use not only the curse sinker, but keeping all the news events on chart. You can do some pretty comprehensive sort of three-dimensional analysis, both in real time and in backtesting. So I just wanted to show you that additional configuration. You could just have a ball with this. I find now I use it all the time because I don't have to mess with going in and switching the input at a moment's notice on a beck and whim. All I got to do is punch that key and I get my sync cursor to come up on the charts, and it really gives you a sort of a fifth dimension, a third dimension I should say, insight in a way that just hasn't been possible to get. Here's one more slick little move, for example. Now I'm going to leave you with this. Isn't it interesting? If you're trading this in real time on a 15-minute, you can see that oscillator is on its way up, right? So you're going to have a tendency to not want to take a short there, right? But in reality, look over at the top right chart. That oscillator's already turned down, and it's looking like it's getting ready to break that trailing stop, right? And up on our 4-hour chart in the top left corner, oscillator's already down. Stochastic is aggressively turning down and crossing, and you've got plenty of room between. And of course, we got our down candle, so that's going to encourage us to go ahead and take that short, knowing that we have a lot of movement, a lot of space here. You've got a good 30 points or so for a move down before we hit that trailing stop. And I have found this particular stop to be incredibly accurate. No need for Fibonacci's and all these other pivot point support resistance indicators. They all come in handy, but again, I'm just showing you how this really gives you an insight into that using the sync cursor, and this really just gives you that sixth sense is what I was looking for before. So we came down, and it would have encouraged us to take this trade in real time. So when this happens next time, you can say, okay, maybe my 15-minute is heading up strong, but my 4-hour is down strong. The short-term indicator, the stochastic, is turning down. The 1-hour is already down. Okay, so I'm going to sort of disregard this upward thrust on the 15, especially because we know we're coming up to hit this overhead resistance. And if we come down and dial it in a little further even, we could see, you know what, nothing else, I can wait for my pullback up to resistance on my 5-minute and go ahead and jump on it at that point. And that's what we have. If you put your stop just above that, look at that, you got yourself a very, very small, tiny risk, minuscule risk for getting in on that trade. And once you're in, right, you can bring your stop to break even and track it all the way down till you hit that support over here, which would have been a nice, like I say, about 20-30 point move, right? So just another way of using sync cursor, global cursor, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so now to really bring this in for a landing, wouldn't it be cool, you might already be thinking to yourself, to just be able to now check out the other currencies, right? Your chart setup's already in place, everything is dialed in, and you just want to go through and see how all your other currencies might look on this type setup. Well, that's where symbol sync comes in handy, because all it takes is bringing up your market watch. I'm dragging over Euro USD. I'm dropping now, and you'll see all the charts, bam, change, all your news events, everything is in place, all your sessions down here, which I didn't reflect on before, and at a moment's notice you can now move between a number of different symbols. I like to use a overall chart screener, for example, and if I see something that looks interesting, I like to go over then and drill down into it. And so by doing this, I don't have to have a bunch of monitors, a bunch of additional charts running in the background and switching back and forth waiting for workspaces to open up. I just take my market watch and just drag on the symbol I want to check out. Literally within seconds it comes up, there it is. So I hope you can really see the powerful applications of having this capability at your fingertip. And again, it's just a matter, once you see something, you say, hey, that looks interesting. What was this looking like in shorter time frames? Just hit that shift key. There you go. Move your cursor around. You'll have a ball with this. And it's really fun to just jump in and out of markets, getting the bird's eye view right down into the microscopic view at simply a click of the finger right down on the keyboard. You know exactly what's going on. And you get to see it all within the context of the various market sessions worldwide, the news events, and whatever technical analysis you have up on your screen. And have it all being shown to you in the context of your local time on all time frames. Easy to read, easy to understand, and this is so nice to be able to look up at my charts and then look up at my clock and see that, well, what a concept, they're showing the same thing. So I hope this really comes in handy for you. Okay guys, so I wanted to give you a quick overview of how CTA also works on Renko bars. Renko bars, for those of you who are familiar, are bars that are formed only by virtue of the market moving a minimal price amount, and you can set that price amount for the purpose of smoothing out your bar charts. Now, range bars have an effect of the same thing. Sometimes people use tick bars, work a little bit different. They're of course back to price based, but the point is on range bars, Renko bars, range bars, some of the other ones, CTA also works on those, but I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm just going to go through the Renkos. So to do that, to help to validate and show you that point, to illustrate that I should say, I'm also going to take advantage of one of the other, actually a couple of the other functions of CTA, one of them being the ability to use what's called cursor sync, or the ability to have the cursor show up on 2, 3, 4 multiple charts at the same place. By virtue of using that functionality, and I've activated that, and as you can see, I'm moving the cursor back and forth to the left and to the right on the right hand chart, which is a standard 5-minute candle chart, but it's not budging on the left side charts. The reason is because I have the box or the Renko bar size minimum set at 20 pips. And so on the right hand chart, you can see it's just a 5-minute chart. We're not getting a lot of movement in this range bound section right here, and as a result we're not seeing the bar, or I should say the cursor, move on the left. But just to validate that it's on the proper bar, even though it's on a Renko chart, let's go ahead and use one of the other functions of CTA. Let's go ahead and cause that time to pop up. So just did that. You can see that it is March 28th at 1:25 p.m. Now, of course, you're not going to get that exact time. In some cases, you might not even get the bar that shows just that day, because depending upon, again, the range of the bar that you've selected, if you don't have the price movement, sometimes you can go for days where you're moving within that range, in which case you're only going to see one Renko bar form, even sometime over 2 days. But 20 pips, for the market not to move more than 20 pips, right, in a day, that's going to be difficult. So we should be pretty safe here. So as a notice down below that it is March 28th at 1:25 p.m. But segueing into my other point was the fact that since it's only one bar, you're not going to get the exact time, right? Because there might be a number of minutes or hours that have passed during which that bar registered the requisite movement to generate another bar. But if we can get the same date, that would be cool. So we're at March 28th, 1:25 p.m. Now let's go over to the left side chart and get the price and the time. I mean the time to pop up and see if it's correct. Now make a mental note of what bar that is on the left hand chart over there. I'll circle it. Because as soon as I release the time pop up and move my cursor, that line's going to disappear. There you go. So let's replace the cursor on that same exact bar, trigger the time pop up, and there you go. We do have the correct day. It says 11:15 a.m. and that's because that's going to plot, I believe it's the actual beginning of when that bar began forming. And so within this bar here is where this movement on the right hand chart is happening, as you can see once again by the cursor. Now we're in a downward trending market, aren't we? Pretty serious downward trend. So this is very cool because as we track with the cursor on the right, and just for the heck of it, let's try the date, the time and date again. Still the 28th, 7:35 a.m. But because there's a lot of movement, we have multiple bars. So let's check this bar over here. It's got the day correct, the 28th, and this bar started to form at 7 o'clock. So as I said, when the market's trending downward, that generated a new bar formation. So as we move the cursor to the right with the cursor sync, you can see it is tracking properly over on the left-hand chart. All right, so you get the idea. So I just wanted to show that works. There's a lot of cool strategies and backtesting and ways of tracking between multiple charts that gets to be very exciting to literally generate new trading methodologies based upon this cursor tracking. And imagine when you put that together with your Renko charting, which really smooths out your trend. Just to give you an example, on the left-hand chart, we obviously have a nice downward trend with the red Renko bars. I'm also using a standard Bollinger Band trailing stop indicator on there, which just helps to further validate the downward trend and give us a placement of maybe our stop positioning. So in that downward trend, you might say, let me take a pullback and a turning down of the oscillator, which you could see at the bottom, in a downward trend. And that's exactly right what we had. Okay, we moved up to the Bollinger Band stop over here. We got our stochastic to turn down, and if you just trail it down, of course, that was a nice little trade there. And let's just, for the heck of it, see what kind of a movement that gave us. We took our stop out for a 60 pip profit. That's on a 5-minute chart. Now, of course, we all know that the problems with trading is, or I should say, are choppy markets. And so everybody likes to cherry pick, right, and show you only the best trades. And that was one of them I just did. But I just wanted to show you that that's just one of the ways in which you can use CTA. I'm tracking with the cursor, and we're seeing we're on our downward red bar on the left. Stochastic is also down on the left. Wait for our pullback, or pull back up to the Bollinger, turn down of the stochastic, track it down, and exit there. So just want to show you that the times do correlate properly, and it opens up a lot of cool possibilities when you're using that feature. Okay, so to wrap it up here, I just wanted to show you how all of this does in fact happen right out of the box, as I say, and everything is synced to your local time automatically. I've moved over my frame a little so you can actually show, I can show what time it is here for you. I'm going to go ahead and apply CTA. There we go. And I think I need to increase the number of days. I have this defaulted for the news. And we go. Click OK. And there it is. You have got all of the news events showing Run your cursor over the top. You got trade balance. This is a future event. Look at the top left corner. Trade balance on the Aussie. I'm not going to go through everything. You've already seen it. But I wanted to show you the main thing, which is here we are on a 5-minute. And so let's look at the time of this bar right here. It says it's 6:15 p.m. on the 3rd. We look down here at the bottom right. You see it's 6:19. That's because it's a 5-minute bar. We're in the middle of that bar, so it started forming. And that's what shows on the axis, of course, is the bar time, not the actual real time. That just formed a new bar there. That's cool. 6:20 p.m. and there you go, lower right-hand corner. So everything shows up in sync. We are into, obviously this session is going to be exactly the proper session as well. So hope you like what you see, and then you can go in and tweak it, do everything that you need. There's our countdown timer down here. You can move that if you want. You can size that differently. Here's profit loss. There's no trades going on in this particular currency, so nothing shows up, and all the other goodies I've already showed you. So that should wrap it up, and now I'm just going to give you that wrap up one point at a time very quickly for the final overview of CTA. So to wrap it all up in a nutshell, what does CTA do? Number one, it shows time at the bottom of your MT4 chart along the horizontal axis in addition to or in place of the broker's time. You can do it in AM, PM, or 24-hour in the size and color of your choosing. Number two, shows news events dynamically sorted, automatically synced to your local time in vertical, tabular, or pop-up view. Number three, shows various market sessions of the global trading world synced to your local time as horizontal bars or with vertical lines, again customizable in size and color. Number four, you can set groups of charts to plot the same currency whenever it's changed on any one of them, so it syncs up multiple charts to the same currency or groups of charts. Number five, at the touch of a key, you're able to see your cursor pop up on multiple charts regardless of what the currency you have on it or time frame, totally synced at the price and time that you click on any one of the charts. And it has built-in scrolling, so as you move the scroll back and forth on any one of them on the chart, the other charts adapt and go to that same place. Number six, you can use your crosshair to see the exact time of any candle anywhere on the chart pop up on the x-axis down below, again in your local time precisely. Number seven, it plots profit loss of individual trades right on your charts in pips or your local country's currency in multiple positions on the chart or at the current bar right next to it. Number eight, it's got a built-in bar timer that plots at the bottom, or again you can choose to put it right next to the current bar. 9. You can apply multiple instances of CTA on the same chart. Number 10. It creates any offset desired to the minute from your broker or local time. 11. It can customize the font and background color, again, of that axis. 12. It works on Renko, range bars, and tick bars. 13. You can limit the max bars setting to plot to save on your processing power, so you don't have to be stuck with plotting back thousands of bars right worth of data. You could set it just for the previous day or just the current day. And 14. All this is done automatically right out of the box with no need for any computations or calculations on your part to sync the global market sessions and news events all to your local time, while still being completely customizable with any type of offset, whether from your broker or local time, and be able to do it right to the minute, even in countries without even hourly time zone increments. So all of this sets up automatically right out of the box, no need to do anything. Is that cool or what? Turnkey, up and running, everything you need at your fingertips that has anything to do with time sensitive forex market related information on your MT4 trading platform. For more information or to get set up with custom time axis, go to mt4timeaxis.com and you can get set up within minutes from now. Talk to you soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.